What's up, Summoners? King Blair here. With the Full Metal Alchemist collab in full swing, we're going to be talking about whether or not you should pull for Edward Elric, which is going to be the first limited hero of this collab. And next week, it is going to be Roy Mustang, and they will both have 1 week where they run concurrently. And then it will just be Roy Mustang until the end of the collab. But as far as today, as always, we'll first start with the summary of the hero, what he kind of does, what his role is, where you would be using him. Then we'll actually go into detail to his actual kit, what each of the skills does. And then lastly, we'll talk about his artifact, which is actually a really good artifact, especially for Alencia. Honestly, incredible for Alencia. And then I'll actually show you the build that I have on mine right now, because I did already pull for him and built him and have been testing him. So hopefully I'll be able to get some good clips for you guys this upcoming Monday, if you're still kind of on the fence deciding between him and Roy. But if you are going to be spending on this banner, we do have a word from our sponsors with the Amazon Appstore to tell you how you can save some money if you do plan to spend. So if you hadn't seen from the official epicseven website or from a lot of the other different content creators, you can actually get epicseven now on the Amazon Appstore using the link down in the description to help your boy out quite a bit. But you may be wondering, what is it and why should I download it, right? What's this all about? So first, what is it? Because I wouldn't recommend you something if I didn't think it was actually worth your time. But what it is essentially going to be another app so we can get the app and actually get some pretty sweet deals whenever you spend on the App Store and on the games that you're playing. In this case, most likely going to be epicseven, right? Which is actually going to be on there, right? So where can you get it? What devices can you do it? It works for any Windows 11 device, which means you can actually download the Amazon App Store from your Windows 11 computer, and you can get it straight through there. No need for emulator. You're able to just get the Amazon App Store on your computer and get the game there, which is really sweet, right? It's really nice to be able to do that. But you may be like me and don't have Windows 11 yet. Does that mean you can't get these awesome deals from the Amazon App Store? No, you can actually still get it on any Android device as well. So this tablet that I'm actually recording this video on actually already has the Amazon App Store, and it does help you through those steps if you follow the link and all that good stuff. And if you need any help, make sure to ping me in the Discord and I'll help you as much as I'm able to. And you should be able to get the Amazon App Store and get epicseven. But okay, let's say you did all of this and you were able to get it on your emulator, on your Android tablet, or on your computer Windows 11 device. Why? What should you do afterwards? Why would you want to do this? Well, you're actually going to be getting some pretty sweet deals with 20% off a lot of your purchases using Amazon coins. Essentially, if you think about it, whenever you buy a Leaf pack or if you buy Mystic pack or the specialty packs, you get 20%. So for example, the collaboration packs are usually $100. But now you can get that same value for $80, right, with the Amazon coins. That's a pretty sweet deal, right? That's really good, and long term that really helps a lot, especially if you're a dolphin or a whale. Now for the people that are light spenders and free to play, what do you get out of it? Well, at the end of the day, there are times that you'll eventually get some money to spend in the game, and you want to make sure you're getting the most out of it to be able to optimize, right? You don't want to just waste money. Sometimes, back in the day when I used to get gift cards for Amazon, I didn't know really how to use them. Because it's through the Amazon App Store, if you get an Amazon gift card now, you can actually use the Amazon gift card to get some of the coins to actually spend on the game, right? So it's actually pretty nice if you ever get a gift and you don't have anything you really want to order through Amazon, you don't have anything you want, it's a pretty nice way to spend it and have a little bit of fun, right? So it's definitely something I recommend you guys getting. It's super nice, super long-term, amazing benefits to actually be able to get 20% back on your spending, which is, I just want to let you guys know. But with that out of the way, make sure you go through it and get it. It's going to be pretty awesome. So now, as far as a summary on the hero as well as what's coming next. So as what's coming next, as I mentioned, it is going to be Roy next week, and Roy is going to be a mage that does pretty heavy damage. Ideally, you do want to pull for both because they are both going to be limited heroes, limited collab heroes that may or may not come back in the future, right? We still haven't gotten a slime collab rerun, which I think they will definitely rerun at least once, but again, you never know. It usually takes a full year, so you want to try to get them now because they're not going to be coming back for a long time. But if you have to pick between the two, I honestly am leaning towards Edward, but I suggest waiting until next week for Roy to come out so people can test Roy and you can make that decision for yourself if you can only pick one or the other. Now, as far as Edward himself and kind of what he does, He's a very interesting bruiser unit, right? And he's going to play like a bruiser because his main role is actually going to be to sustain in the fight and do a lot of damage, while also having a little bit of counter towards control, right? Not very heavy like Champion Serrato, not like a Dilibet, but still a pretty nice little counterattack strip that can actually do pretty decent anti-cleave as well, and we'll actually talk about that and when we actually look at his kit. But overall, he's a pretty fair unit. He's not like absolutely broken, busted, like this hero that's gonna break the game, but he's actually not a bad hero at all. I've actually been enjoying using him, and I definitely see a lot of potential in him. So with that, let's actually go over to his kit, and then of course I'll show you the build of mine and how I've been starting to use him. But I want to finish molaying him and awakening him to really be able to put that video out on how I use him. But as far as to where he can be used, honestly, he's pretty good for Guild Wars, for Arena, and for RTA, right? I've been using him in all of them, and he can function in all of them. So if you like him, he actually can do a pretty decent job. But let's actually start looking at his kit and his base stats, which honestly, the base stats are pretty interesting, right? So first, attack, very low. He has a little bit of attack scaling on his S1. So his S1 can actually hit pretty hard if you do put some attack on him, but that is not going to be your main focus because most of his skills do scale with HP, right? So you ideally want to make him very, very bulky so he can survive longer in the fight. He's going to have pretty decent HP, you know, nothing super insane, nothing crazy, no a Robbie levels of HP, but he's going to have a pretty fast base speed of 117, which is really, really good for a bruiser, right? It's oddly fast for a bruiser, which kind of makes sense because he does want to cycle his passive to be able to counterattack more. And then the defense, again, nothing too crazy, but still pretty nice bruiser stats. 0 help with the crit rate on the base stats, which is going to make his build very, very difficult. And that's going to be one of the biggest things with him. He's not a particularly easy character to build because of how much base stat restrictions he has. They did give him a crit rate imprint, which again, it is going to be the best imprint. And the fact he doesn't get any help from his own awakenings does help a lot. And mine, I will have to eventually try to give him slates to be able to get him higher crit rate, because it definitely will help a lot with the build and will help you be able to reach higher stat levels. So again, pretty solid imprint, decent base stats, oddly fast for kind of like this anti-bruiser control, but again, it's to be able to cycle his passive, which we'll get to in a second. So first is going to be the S1, which is going to be a very, very basic S1. It's nothing crazy at all. The barrier is tiny. Like you can see it right now. You're like, oh, it's just because he only has 6,000 HP. No, it is actually that big. It is going to be probably like a 1,000 HP barrier, maybe max 2,000 HP barrier if you have a very, very high health Edward. But again, it's a nice little barrier, you know. It's not the greatest S1, but it does seem decently hard, right? Like, I think mine right now is doing 5,000 to 7,000, and it's not even full mullet. So it'll do around like 8k. You know, pretty fair 8,000 damage on an S1, right? And get a little bit of sustain, nothing too crazy. Again, I cannot stress how small this barrier is. It's Senya levels of barrier, right? It's literally this tiny little barrier. But again, it does help mitigate a little bit. And I've had situations where he's lived because of that tiny barrier, right? 1 to 2,000 health is still 1 to 2,000 health, right? It's still gonna help you live a little bit longer. But again, nothing too crazy, pretty basic S1, that's not why you're using him. Now you have the S2, which is going to be a really, really cool and unique skill. So it's going to be, when you get a debuff on you, you'll dispel 1 debuff and do a counterattack that's going to be an AoE counterattack that strips 1 buff from the opponent and applies a random debuff, with it being decreased attack, decreased hit chance, provoke, silence, or restrict, right? So that's a pretty good range of counters, right? Not bad, right? And the debuffs are actually pretty good. The damage on this skill, it's not great, but it's not as bad as people make it seem. It's a nice little like 4,000 damage. If you have a very well built Edward, like 4,000 damage, poke damage, you know, it's like almost Amaro levels of S2, except you don't get the artifact proc afterwards to make it actually really hurt. But it's still a nice little fill, 4,000 damage, and it's once per turn. That's going to be the reason why he does need to cycle, and why I still feel like speed set is going to be the best on him, although I could see him use counter just so he's able to take more turns and try to apply that barrier more often. But again, pretty low damage, right? Not a lot of damage on the S2, but again, it's not about the damage all the time. It's actually about the debuffs. And this is actually really nice into things like Para and even Ran. Because with Ran, when Ran does the S2 and does the S3, right? He's going to land a debuff onto your Edward. And you're going to be cleansing that decreased defense, right? Most likely. and you're going to be doing that AoE attack. You're going to strip the immunity from the opponent, from the Ran, after the S3, and you're going to be potentially adding a silence or another random debuff to a critical cleave unit, right? It could be their Polides, it could be their Ida, right? You never know, right? You can land that S2 or even their Sid and potentially silence, restrict, attack break, right? Which are all very crushing debuffs, right? So it's very good in those type of situations. Against Alencia, if you're in a 1v1 situation, which doesn't happen as often as you would think, but any hero that has straight S1 attacks is going to trigger this skill, right? So a lot of the times he's going to get ignored, right? Because a lot of characters do have S1s that are going to apply debuffs. So a lot of the time, people will ignore him unless they have an A Ravi, a Hua, a Rimuru, an Archdemon's Shadow, because he does not cleanse. This can be sealed, right? So there's Lionheart Sermia. There's a lot of heroes that can't bypass this passive that don't have debuffs on their skills. But the ones that do have debuffs, like Alencia is a big one that has one. Things like Fonsteel, I know she's not used as often. Ran, Peyra, right? There's a lot more of the setup type heroes. We'll kind of have to ignore him because they don't want to be hit with this little big AoE attack, right? So it's mostly going to be a counter, and that's his bread and butter, a counter to big, heavy AoE attacks, right? And now we get to the S3, which is going to be a single target damaging skill that is going to ignore Aureus effects, right? Damage sharing effects. So if you use this on a Tinker set, it'll ignore the damage sharing, right? You'll just go bypass straight through it. If you use this against any Aureus, again, you'll bypass straight through it. And the damage is done based on your health. And every time you use it, the damage does go up. You also do get a 50% CR push, right? The damage is actually pretty solid on the skill, even from the get-go, right? From the first time you do the S3, it does a solid like 13,000 on a bruiser, 13, 14, 15,000 on a bruiser, which is pretty solid, right? It will kill a squishy, right? It should kill a squishy, and it'll do a pretty good damage onto a lot of different bruisers, right? I've used this a lot against Rosses, mediators, and it does around 14, 15k, right? Which is a very good for the fact that you also get to cycle the S3 and get to do a big S1 right after because you're getting that 50% extra, right? The biggest problem with the skill is going to be the long cooldown, which again is more balanced than something like Qual that's a 3-turn cooldown. If this skill was a 3-turn cooldown, he might actually be like a pretty crazy unit, but the fact that this is a 4-turn cooldown makes him significantly more balanced. You can soul burn it to get it back more often, but it's, again, a lot of times you do want to open with the skill because you're losing a lot of damage if you don't. So unless you're bringing a mage that has a book and you're able to soul burn her early to be able to get that down to just one more turn, it's not going to be getting that level of like stacking that you may want. So overall, what are my thoughts on him, right? He's going to be this weird opener counter, right? And that's where I've had the most success with him, is countering things like Peyra, it's countering things like Rain, right? And even sometimes picking it into things like Alencia, right? The biggest thing though is there are still a lot of meta threads that are going to be able to deal with him pretty well, right? Hua, which honestly, if you're not pre-banning that unit at this point, you're probably either picking her or getting wrecked by her or cleaving, right? One of those three different options, right? But Hua does really good into him. A Ravi does really good into him, just because A Ravi, he does have pretty good damage and can eventually kill him, but A Ravi can injure him, make him do less damage. It's harder for him to take her down. She doesn't have any debuffs, right? Chu can still do pretty good into him. Again, Water doesn't have any debuffs. And all these are pretty meta heroes, but he does have a positive matchup into things like Alencia. He does have a pretty decent matchup into even things like Rimuru, assuming you're able to survive the Rimuru S3, right? Once you survive the Rimuru S3, which you hopefully should, you should be able to get some damage out there and be able to do some damage, right? So overall, pretty decent fire DPS with a good counter to openers that have debuffs. One thing to note though is that he's not a counter to debuffs, right? And I know that sounds weird, but things like Conquer Lilius and things like Angel Light Angelica are still going to beat him because that is way too many debuffs for him to deal with. You'll get one S2, which can swing the game for you, but against things like AOL, right? AOL is putting unable to be buffed and silenced, and then you're getting all these debuffs. You can only do this once per turn. You do your S2, and against AOL, she's just going to be cleansing and giving the team a skill nullifier, right? So you should not take her into AOL. I've tried it a lot into AOL, thinking he'd be good into it. And 99% of the time, I was like, man, I really wish I had anyone but him, right? So overall, kind of a weird unit. And definitely we'll get to see how he plays more as people optimize his build. And I'll show you my build in a second. But overall, he still has a pretty solid niche in a slot, which is going to be, and I started using him a lot for anti-cleave, and it does feel pretty good to do as an anti-cleave, right? Especially because a lot of cleaves do rely on heroes that have straight debuffs, right? Things like Rand, things like Para, right? And he's able to be there, be annoying, potentially swing the game in your favor, right? And he's going to be pretty bulky. And again, I do use him against Alencia. His damage is not terrible. People seem to say that his damage is absolute dog water, but it's actually not bad, right? The S1 and S3 is actually pretty decent. Overall, if I had to put him in a tier, he'd probably be B tier, right? He's not S tier. He's not even A tier. He's a solid B tier unit with being able to counter at the right situation and be really good in those right situations. Would I suggest playing for him? Yes, he's very unique. He's a limited hero, and he has a lot of potential to grow as the metas shift, right? So it's one of those heroes that even if he's not the best right now, there's a chance to go up for him in the future, and the fact that he's limited makes him even that much better. But with that, let's actually take a quick look at his actual artifact. And we can go to the artifact journal and go check that out. So as far as the artifact, this artifact is actually crazy. You do want to get at least one copy. Ideally, of course, maxing it out would be amazing, but just even having one copy is enough, right? This artifact is going to be probably one of the best artifacts for Alencia. Why? You get raw crit chance right off the bat, right? You just get a free 10% crit chance, which eases the build restrictions on Alencia so much. You also, every time you do an extra attack, you're going to be getting a nice 8% if it's maxed out. If you only have a plus 15, I think it's 5.6. I can check mine in a second. Or it's like 5% or something like that. But it's still a pretty nice boost every time you do an extra attack. And Alencia, every time she does her S1, S2 combo, will get an 8% speed boost and an 8% crit hit damage boost, right? That is crazy. Right, that's just crazy to me to think that you're able to get speed and crit damage. You're doing more damage, you're getting more speed, you're taking more turns on Alencia, and you're easing the build restrictions. It's probably going to be one of Alencia's best artifacts, although of course Crimson Seed still being really, really solid. But again, limited artifact has potential, especially on things like Alencia. Really, really great artifact. And I can show you that my Alencia is not the greatest Alencia. Please don't use mine as an example. Mine is not even close to the level it should be. But as far as my Edward, the reason why I haven't made a video of him specifically, hopefully by Monday, I'll have him catalyst out. And hopefully I'm able to get one more slate with Arena season starting soon. I may or may not try for a new copy, depending if I get Mustang early. If I get Mustang quick, and I'm able to get Mustang, I might actually try to go for 1 or 2 more imprints. But overall, this is my build for him. I did give him a little bit of attack, so his S1 would do a little bit of damage. Although, I may consider actually switching it to all HP. The last imprint is going to be HP, so you should be looking at something like 1850. I like the speed set. He needs to take turns to be able to cycle his passive faster, be able to utilize more of his things. And I like the pen set because, again, it's just a straight 1.5k damage boost. And the sets are actually pretty good, right? They're actually pretty bulky. But the gear is actually really, really solid on this hero. The gear that I have on him right now. And it's still one of those things that's like, man, he feels like very, very stat hungry, very, very hard hero. Again, things like the neck, if it was an attack, if it was like crit damage or something like that, it probably would be better. But again, pretty solid hero. Not like the broken, like it's not a Hua level type unit. It's not like a Chu or Lensa type unit, but it's still a pretty solid hero, right? And then as far as Lencia, so it's a 6-star, so it'll probably be like around 5%, right? If you don't have it maxed out, because I did get one copy from the powder shop, as well as being able to pull it when I was actually pulling for Edward. But overall, I mean, yeah, it's a really great artifact. Again, don't look at my Lencia. My Lencia is not the greatest. She is not on my best gear. I haven't farmed the KD set in a while, but that's going to be all I have for you guys today. I hope you all enjoyed. I could show you a little bit of how I've been trying to use him and play around with him. Just really quickly, just for your idea, but hopefully Monday I'll get you a little bit more of a better look into what he does. So a lot of them are going to be losses because, again, I've been testing him. So in this situation, it was just very unlucky. He landed the stunts and I didn't go for the Polides like I should have. So that was my bad. That wasn't him being bad. Again, this one was probably picked him in one of the worst situations possible. Close match, mostly Amaro doing the carrying. This was one of the ones that, again, he did a really good job, right? You see the Para, you see the Polides. The reason why I won this game is because he was able to do pretty good damage on the enemy and was able to silence the Polides, right? That's what won me the game that round. And I've been testing him a lot. And again, that's not even awakened, not even skilled up. Let's see if I can find another one. This one, again, you see there, he has debuffs on a lot of his heroes. He's able to sit there and do some damage and be able to win the fight, right? And I had wasted deals with the other units there. I know one of my opponents used it in one of them, but I don't know if... oh yeah, Ace Trainer. Ace Trainer, the only reason he lost this game is because my Amaro popped off, but he actually picked it in a pretty good, decent situation, right? Amaro does counter him, but he was doing really solid damage, right? It was more of my aim arrow just decided to pop off and kind of just beat Ace Trainer. But again, hopefully that gives you a good idea on how I've been kind of using him, mostly against these aggressive teams. I've been testing him a lot against AOL. He does not work against AOL. But again, I need to awaken him, finish awakening him, finish killing him up. But he's pretty decent, right? But that's going to be all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Peace.